And thank you for being here. My name is Isaac Perez, and you'll hear from my colleague a little bit later. We're here to talk to you about our loan program and some grant programs, all housed at HGAC. We will have time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, but if I didn't speak clearly or if you have a burning question that you want to ask, raise your hand and we'll be happy to address them right there on the spot. So I'm thinking, because of this conference, most of us probably know or have heard of the Houston-Galveston Area Council. Has anybody not heard of the Houston-Galveston Area Council? Fantastic. I might have seen one hand go up, but they put it down quickly. So what is HGAC? Just very quickly, since everybody seems to be basically familiar with it, it's a council of governments with a plethora of programs. Of course, we're only going to touch on one or two of them today. That's probably the purpose of the session. But one of the great things that I love talking about is that there are others in the region that do what we do, but they don't have access to the same resources that we do. Because we are at HGAC, we can connect folks and our partners and potential borrowers to all the other resources at HGAC. So we like to think of ourselves as a one-stop shop. These are just some of the different programs available at the council. We'll be focusing on the business and economic development. The Houston-Galveston Area Local Development Corporation. We are the economic development part of HGAC, where we try to assist small businesses in either start a business or expand their current business. We primarily do that by providing long-range, low-interest rate loans that are accessible for fixed assets, typically real estate. This can be the purchasing of land, purchasing of a building, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So our flagship program is the SBA 504 loan. Has anybody heard of the SBA 504 loan? Joshua, Megan, what's your name, ma'am? Audrey, fantastic. So we got 3 people that have heard of it. So if I misspeak, don't correct me, just wait until after the session and you can correct me at that point in time. So the SBA 504 loan program is our flagship loan program. And some basic characteristics of it is, in order to facilitate it, you're going to need several partners. You're going to need the borrower, somebody who's trying to start that business or expand their current business. And then you need a banking partner, someone who, so it can be your typical bank or it can be an alternative lender who's going to provide about 50% of the loan. And then you have somebody like us, HGAC, who counts as a CDC, which we won't go into the nitty-gritty at this point. But these are the 3 partners you need to even have this loan. Now, something I didn't quite get into it, but what does the loan actually entail? So, oftentimes, whenever a small business is trying to get started, they're not completely familiar with all the costs associated with starting a business. They think, okay, I bought a building, now all I gotta do is move, if it's a real estate shop, all I gotta do is move in my inventory. What about the lighting? What about the parking lot? What about the ramps? What about any steps needed to get into the facility? These are all startup costs that a lot of businesses aren't familiar with. At HGAC, because we are a council of governments, we're not a private enterprise trying to maximize profits, trying to minimize our interactions with customers. We'll spend time with you and work with you at any stage of the process to let you know, hey, you think you're getting ready and you want a loan the next month, and then you have a conversation with us and we tell you, you know what, slow down. You have a great idea, but it's gonna take a little bit more than a month. Let's dot some more I's and cross some T's off beforehand. And so this loan, it is gonna have a maturity date of about 20 to 25 years. As of date, so the 25-year just got added, I believe, late last year or early last year, and so they always talk about it can be 20 years or 25 years, but I don't think I've seen anybody choose a 20-year over 25-year since it's been included. It can have a loan amount of up to $5 million, Now, is that for the total project, or is that just our portion? That's for our portion. So a loan can be $15 million, it can be a $15 million project, and HVAC can fund up to $5 million of that. Minimum amount of $25,000, so there's a huge range of that. Oftentimes, whenever I'm talking about this, people will hear the millions dollar amount, and they're like, oh, I'm only looking for some space, a small space, it's a $200,000–$300,000 project. That's not a problem, that's something that we can work with. So what are some advantages to borrowers? Why don't more people do it? What's gonna stop you from doing it? One of the best things about our program is that we require one of the lowest startup down payments than your conventional loan. Your average person, you think of a loan, myself included, when I think of loan, I think of a bank. This is where I have to get my checking account, this is where I might have a credit card account. If I need a loan, a house loan, a car loan, I'm going to a bank, that's just what makes sense, and that's fine. But what if you're trying to get a loan and they're gonna tell you, well, you're gonna need about 20–25% down payment. You might have to start thinking about, am I ready to do that right now, or am I gonna have to wait another year or 2 years? So with our program, it's as little as 10%. That can go up to 20%, depending on the project. So if you heard me say about we can provide financing for a startup business, we absolutely can do that and we encourage it. However, being a startup business, unfortunately, you are gonna carry a slightly larger risk, so that down payment does go up to 15% instead of that 10%. Now, what if you're also, another part of it is if it's a special, what we call a special purpose property. Prime example is a hotel. Hotels are very popular in this industry just because their project sizes tend to be quite large, and a lot of people like to invest into those properties. Folks who are liquid at that dollar amount, the $1 million, $2 million, $3 million range. And so a motel or a hotel, if things go sour and I'm gonna try to sell my business, you can't really do anything else with a hotel other than run a hotel. So that's gonna be a special purpose property, and we're gonna have to add another 5%. So they either if you're a startup, it's gonna bring you up to 20%. If you weren't a startup, you were just expanding operations, that's gonna keep you at 15%. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers and percentages and conditions, so definitely feel free to clear some of this up right now or later on. Something else that we can do is debt refinancing. This was also recently added. So what is debt refinancing? Well, you heard me talk about a business who is looking to expand operations. So your ideal scenario is, I've already been in business for 20 years, I have zero debt, and my restaurant is just so amazing, I want to start a second restaurant. Well, we can provide funding for that second restaurant. However, what if I still have a loan? Business is still booming, I still need, there's still demand for a second restaurant or an increase in space, but I still have a loan on my current property. Do I have to pay it off before I am able to expand operations? No. So the debt refinancing program, what we're able to do is pay off your current loan and then finance that into the larger project of what it costs to expand into that second location. You hear me talking about second location, it can either be a second location or expansion of the current location. So it's a very flexible program as long as we're talking about those three things. Land, building, and then a third, equipment. This is the first time I bring it up. Equipment is also available for financing if it's going to be have a useful life of 10 years or more. And why is that? Because the smallest maturity range you can have for anything is going to be 10 years. So really, if the useful life of equipment is going to be 5 years, do you really want to be paying it off for 5 years after that? Probably not. So the loan sounds amazing. HVAC is going to work with us. Well, am I eligible? What's it going to take? So the basic eligibility is this is a small business loan. So what does that mean? You have to be a business. You have to be for profit. If you're a part of the cooperative purchasing program, more than likely you're either a vendor, and so maybe for your business operations it qualifies, or you're a local government of some sort of municipality that you're not for business, right? And so this might not be specifically for you, but don't leave yet. We still have other programs that you'll be interested in. But again, so it has to be for profit. You have to be considered small business. Small business is defined as having a net worth of less than $15 million. It's your net worth of your business. And then also, you have to have averaged $5 million or less over the past 2 years. In addition, which we don't come across this being a restraint often, is 500 or less employees. This is probably going to come into play more often whenever you're talking about a major manufacturer or warehousing space that has a ton of employees. Another thing, we don't like to call it this, but sometimes this loan is called a second chance loan. Well, why is that? Government never wants to do what private business can take care of, right? That's kind of like a good goal to have. Government comes in to kind of help out where there's people falling through the cracks that they just need a little help to kind of keep going. So one of the requirements is that credit is not available elsewhere. So that means that Joshua goes to a bank, he has a great business idea, but he's gonna be a startup, and the projections, they're good, but you know what, the bank right now, there's like, you know what, maybe if you came last year, we would've given you a loan, but this year, you know what, you're just not gonna fit our portfolio mix that we're gonna go with right now, so we're gonna decline you. But Joshua has a great business idea. So SBA says, no, we're here to create jobs. We want to create jobs. It's very important. We're trying to stimulate the economy in the region. So we're going to help finance a portion of Joshua's loan. So hey, bank, what if we cover 30% of the cost? How about now? Would you be interested? Oh, okay, yeah. At that point, the bank's only covering 50% instead of 100 or 90% of it. And so now it's going to be less risky. Now all of a sudden they're interested, right? And so that's what we mean by evidence that credit is not available elsewhere. Now, does that mean you have to be officially denied before you talk to us? No, absolutely not. There's ways to justify that. Sometimes maybe Josh was going to qualify, but he's going to have a really high rate. He's going to have 12%, right? I forget exactly how the quote goes, but there's no such thing as too much risk. A bank is never going to say that it's too risky. It's just that that risk is going to cost more. And somebody's going to pay for that risk, and it's not going to be the bank. So that's where your interest rates go up. And so at that point, if his risk is valued at 12%, we're like, hey, how can we mitigate that? Slapping an SBA loan on it, Isaac comes in, covers 30, 40% of it, and all of a sudden everybody's happy. What are some eligible uses of the funds? You've heard me talk about land, you've heard me talk about purchasing buildings. These can be existing buildings, or they can be ground-up construction. Maybe there's a plot of land that you're thinking, hey, it'd be a great spot for my business. You can use this loan to not only purchase the land, but to also build the business up. Right now, we actually just submitted for SBA approval, I think 2 weeks ago, Omar, something like that, for a hotel. So they're gonna pay 20% because it's the first hotel to start up, and it's a special purpose property, and they're gonna build the building ground up, and they're gonna use the loan also to cover for the development of the land. And so it's gonna cover a lot of those fees that you would have to cover on your own out of pocket if you're dealing with just out of the bank. Something else that you can use the funds for are what we call soft costs. So besides the development of the land, what about permitting? What about land appraisals? What about environmental review? These are all things that, there's borrowers that come in, gun-ho, ready to go, hear about this appraisal that's gonna cost $50,000 to get done. Well, I don't wanna pay $50,000 out of pocket without getting approved for it. In most banks, they're gonna require it at the beginning before they even approve you. So if, let's say, worst goes to worst, you pay $50,000, the business doesn't get approved by the bank, you're out of $50,000. With us, it's part of the approval. So we're gonna approve your project, and those costs are financed into the loan. Unfortunately, although we're extremely flexible with borrowers, we're wanting to tap different resources, this specific loan program cannot be used for working capital. So maybe you already have a business and you're not quite as liquid as you would like, and you would like some extra funds for payroll, just to, increase your cash flow. You're not gonna be able to use this for working capital. You're also not gonna be able to use it as goodwill. So what does that mean? Just if you're purchasing a building, oftentimes there's a nice chunk included in there because it's kind of like a franchise fee. There's something to be said about brand recognition. If you're in a small community and you're gonna purchase a building outright, it's more than just what the property and the inventory is worth. It's also what the name is worth. And so that extra cost, that subjective value, is not something that we're gonna be able to cover. So the typical structure, 50% is gonna be borrowed from a bank, 40% 40% to be borrowed from us, 10% by the borrower. Again, that's if the borrower is only paying 10%. If they have to pay 15%, that nice chunk gets taken out of our portion. The bank is still paying 50, our portion goes down to 35. Project examples, so again, this can be for office space, this can be for dental or doctors' offices, this can be for restaurants, this can be for daycares. Daycares are a very popular industry for this loan for several reasons. One being that a lot of people get started into daycare out of their own home. So they get certified to do all the right stuff, but they're out of their own home. And so they don't start a facility until business is already booming. So you already have kind of a proven track record. They already have that client base. So the likelihood of them failing is a little bit less. Secondly, there's a lot of permitting costs that go into them. So it's very attractive that they're not going to have to pay for those soft costs from the beginning out of pocket. So it's very attractive to them that they're able to do that. And then another portion, which is a little bit more subjective, but makes sense, is that as we have a region that is not only aging, but you have more and more people coming in and you're expanding out, the need for daycare is not going away. And so as you spread out further, well, you need a daycare that's going to be a little bit closer to home. The second loan that we have is the Business Loan Fund. So this is actually through the EDA, and I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but Joshua, if you want to go ahead and come up and talk to us a little bit about the Business Loan Fund and what that entails.
Thank you, Isaac. So I want to start off by saying the Economic Development Administration is your federal government partner for economic development. They're the only federal agency that's specifically tasked with economic development, and most of their interaction is directly with governments. This is one area where the EDA interacts with small businesses by providing necessary funds to expand employment. That's really their goal, is jobs, jobs, and jobs. So what they're looking to do is create an injection of capital into the economy to create jobs. So they are primarily tasked with economic development, but they also play a role in disaster recovery on the economic development side. So the loans are from $30,000 to $500,000. Typically, you'll see about a floor of $100,000 because of the borrowing costs don't make a $30,000 loan make very much sense. The maturity is 10 years, which is a short term, but the interest rate usually hovers around 4%. We've been seeing that consistently over the past 5 or 6 years. And it's a quick turnaround for a loan. The idea is to get capital out there as soon as we can. So, okay, this is what I primarily wanted to talk to you is about the Business Loan Fund, is the government loan fund. So the Business Loan Fund goes out to small businesses, but the local government loans are available to local governments. And this is really a resource, and this is probably the primary reason I'm here at this HGAC BUY conference, is this local government loan. So this loan fund is available for local government loans, and it has very few restrictions, and you can see the loan application is literally 1 page long. We're gonna also need a resolution from City Council backing up the loan, but you can get up to $500,000, longer terms, and a low fixed interest rate. It's still gonna be above your municipal bond level, but we've had several success stories in the region of governments using this fund in order to make the purchase, and there's no payback penalty at all. So, for example, the City of Liberty was facing an issue, or Liberty County was facing an issue where they did not have adequate pressure at their fire hydrants. And so they were going to have their businesses face an increased rate for their fire insurance, making Liberty County a less attractive place to do business. So they were able to receive funding for a tanker pumper truck so that they could meet the fire insurance requirements and thus enhancing the economic development of Liberty County. And they were able to get very competitive rates. The city of Prairie View recently came in and received a loan for police automobiles. So this is a great tie-in also with HGAC buying and cooperative purchasing. If your local government or a client has a need that they cannot meet immediately, this is an option for them to come into the Houston Galveston Area Council and the Gulf Coast Economic Development District. Every part of Texas has an economic development district that is funded through the Economic Development Administration. So to come into our Gulf Coast Economic Development District and receive funding to make sure that your city remains economically competitive and has access to capital when it needs it. So I encourage everyone to take note and to make sure you get Isaac's business card. I also want to talk about the EDA grant program. So the EDA provides grants, and these are something that your local government should pursue. So they have an innovation strategies competition. They provide grants around job competitiveness and job creation. And this is a list. So the 21st century infrastructure is really around broadband expansion. The economic adjustment assistance is how we funded a lot of our Hurricane Harvey recovery funding. Was through an economic adjustment program. And that is the typical EDA is how we build infrastructure for economic development using EDA grants. That grant should open back up in October, assuming that the Federal Register comes out, but you never know with the shenanigans in Washington. And so that typically we'll be talking more about that a little later. The rest of the grants are really not targeted toward local governments, but are an option, and I'm happy to talk with you about them later. So the EDA's, the primary focus is on creating jobs, but they also look at how do we driving innovation as an economy and how are we driving public partnerships and global competitiveness as an economy. You will also see a lot of emphasis in the writing around sustainable development and how do we address economically disadvantaged cities. So what they'll look for in that economic adjustment reassistance program is, what is your distress criteria? What is the unemployment, which is very low, fortunately, and what is the per capita income? So there are 5 regional EDA offices. Ours is for the Austin region, and so that covers Texas and the surrounding 4 states. And so if you're from outside, that's kind of where we work. These are 2 grants that we recently worked on. One was an innovation grant for the Baylor College of Medicine. They received about $1.5 million of EDA investment to help launch an innovation center to take drugs from trial to market. So that was something that the EDA supported. And then Bay City, which is in Matagorda County, received significant infrastructure investment in water and sewer to bring the Tenaris plant, which is a steel pipe manufacturer primarily working in the oil and gas space. So that plant deal would not have happened if the infrastructure wasn't built. The infrastructure wouldn't have been built if the EDA had been able to partner with local funds to get that done. So that's just a few examples of how we've partnered in the region to make sure economic development is occurring. And with that, I will turn it, let me talk a little bit about our community enhancement grants. I apologize, I'll go back. So hopefully later this year, if everything lines up, the SBA, the Houston Galveston Local Area Development Corporation, will be reinstating community enhancement grants, and we're looking to make those, I believe, TBD, but around the $10,000 level with a 50% match for things like street furniture, signage, wayfinding, anything that enhance the perception of your community. So that will be done with the reinvestment of SBA funds into the community. So that's another reason why the Houston Galveston Local Development Corporation is the place to go for your 504 loans, because that money gets reinvested back into the region. And so here are some other loans that are available. If you are in, I'm going to turn it back over to Isaac, but if you are in the USDA area, I highly recommend getting in contact with either the office in Angleton or Lufkin, depending on where you're located in the state of Texas, or wherever you're located if you're in a rural area. The The USDA has some unparalleled, I like to say that EDA is the only one who works in economic development, but the USDA has a lot of leverage in what they can do with their funding, in terms of economic development and enhancing your community with community development. On the other side, in urban areas, it's mostly housing and urban development and community development block grants, and those have a lot more restrictions. So I would highly recommend that you look at your USDA office if you're located in a rural area. With that, I'll turn it back over to Isaac.
So you've heard me talk about wanting to be a one-stop shop. So we have other loans that are available. The only thing is that they're actually not available through us. So we facilitate the 504 program, but there also exists another loan program called this SBA 7A. There, a bank doesn't need to work with us. A bank can facilitate that by themselves. They themselves have an agreement with the SBA, they make it happen. Now, there's perks to that program, and there's some that our program's a little bit better, right? And so one of the reasons that this is a little bit better program is that you can use it for working capital. You can use it for payroll costs. But their interest rates aren't going to be as low as the 504 program. Also, they're not going to be fixed. So that means after 5 years, if maybe you did get a good rate, 5%, but guess what? The market changes, all of a sudden it can balloon up to 7%. Then also you will be responsible for any balloon payments that the bank has bestowed upon you. That being said, if we can't do something for you, if you came to us looking for a 504 and you know what, we decided we're not going to be the best fit for you, we will refer you out to one of our banking partners. Just about 2-3 weeks ago, no, it's 2 weeks, I received word that somebody that I had referred out to our banking partner was actually approved for a loan, and they got the term sheet and they committed to the loan. And so this is somebody who wanted to purchase a business, an existing business. And so they came to us, they heard me present about it, like, hey, you know what, I got a business I want to buy. And I'm like, okay, we can absolutely do that, for the assets of that actual business. But there's a nice chunk of change that was dedicated just to that goodwill, because it was an established business in the downtown Houston area. And so a big part of it was just that it was established already. So I want to say that was about 45% of what the cost was of that business. That's not something we're going to be able to help. But a banking partner that I've done deals with him, he's done deals, we know how we work, and we're like, you know what, this is a good project for you guys, and they've been working with him. This was since May. And so this is a guy that, he's calling me every day, like, no, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. Well, it took him, 4 months outside of myself. So people think that government can work slow. Well, this is a bank who's gonna make a bunch of money off of this, and it took them 4 months on somebody who's ready to go. So I just like to comment on that. But we referred him out, and it's fantastic. This borrower, now he's gonna know that we're the ones that help connect them. The banks, is now able, we're working on another project together. So it's something that we just wanna help the borrower. We wanna help stimulate growth in the economy in the Houston area. I say Houston, but we serve a 13 county region. We are HGAC. And one of our major focuses, I can speak on earlier, is actually the rural county areas. So we've had presentations in Fort Bend, in the city of Montgomery. We have a hotel project coming up in the city of Waller. We've had meetings in Wharton County to discuss what can be done over there. I think one of our strategies, we're actually gonna go out to Liberty, because Liberty's seeing a stable growth. So there's a lot of things that need to be done over there, or can be done. You heard Josh talk about the USDA loan, so I won't speak more on that. Community enhancement grants. So this is great. Just add to what Josh was saying is, so you should definitely consider HGAC for all the wonderful things, but also because we are HGAC, we are mission driven, we are choosing to, hey, some of the funds, some of the servicing fees that we collect from administering the 504 loan, we're gonna go ahead and provide some grants for local municipalities to utilize. Microloans are something that are very popular for small businesses, particularly those starting up. We don't currently have that program, but it is something that we're in the process of developing. Because we are a council of governments, we can't just snap our fingers and say we can do it. We have to develop the program from the ground up and kind of get it vetted and voted on by board members at every stage of the way. And so that is something we're working on, and developing partners along with that to kind of help recapitalize our funds so we can then lend out as microloans. So So that's loans and grants, oh my. That's what we've been wanting to talk about. We're so happy that y'all were able to come out. Now we think we have a few minutes available for questions and answers. If we don't get to your questions, then just feel free to stick around. I'll be here for a little bit anyways. So I'll open up the floor now. Seeing no hands for questions and hearing no. Okay. Sure, I'm being told that there is an activity.
It's a game.
I don't want to call it a game, but.
Okay, is anybody in the room familiar with Kahoot? Has anyone used Kahoot? We have one hand in the back, yay, okay. Two hands. But it's kind of just gonna be like a fun way to see if you guys retained any of the information that was just given to you in a fun way. You log in with your phone, in a few seconds it'll pop up, and you get points for being quicker than everyone else in the room and for getting it right. And then it'll show you who won at the top. So yeah. Give me a few seconds to let it pop up. Okay, so on your phones, you can go to www.kahoot.it and then you type in this code right here, and then it'll let you choose a name. So you can either be incognito or you can let everybody in the room know who you are. Raise your hand if you still haven't got it. Okay, we'll give it a few more seconds.
What J's
JT, JC, JD, JB, okay. Is everybody? No, I'm Jax. Okay. Is everybody on? Yes? Okay. It's really short, just 6 questions. Okay, all 3 people got it right.
That's a tricky question. Yeah, absolutely. So we do, in a way, partner with investors to start a small business. The difference being that it's not a group of, if we're gonna work with investors, then there has to be somebody who's actually involved with the project management and actually and running the business. So it's not gonna be a blind investment where a group of investors just take our money and invest it into a variety of businesses. It is gonna be a one-to-one relationship. So we do come across investors utilizing the SBA program to kind of help diversify their own portfolios, but there does become an actual individual partner that we actually work with, because again, it's a small business and it has to be owner occupied, and there has to be a direct line with who's funding it and who's responsible for the management of the business. How's that even loading? Okay, audio visual in here. Okay. I'm being told I think it's time to head, is it downstairs?
Yes, so lunch will be downstairs in the expo area where the round tables are. We have a keynote speaker. We can finish this up here.
Yeah. That's okay, we're at the 11:45 mark, so again, thank you everybody for coming. We'll be here, we're in no rush, so if you have any questions or any comments, well, we'll be here to just come by and see us. So yeah,
And you guys have a class tomorrow.
thank you to all the days in the room.